Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is Dr. William Sneblin coming to you from With One Accord.
Hello, Mr. BS. You do not have a doctorate's degree. What kind of nonsense are you spewing about today?
And we have here a teaching that's...
You have a comma where a period should be in the name of your... You know what? Never mind.
kind of in a response to questions that people have sent us in the realm of spiritual warfare and the occult.
Oh, you mean that one-sided battle where you're fighting some imaginary foe? Yeah, how is that battle going?
Because, you know, in the last few months we've been talking about, you know, the idea of praying against curses, and especially some of these satanic holidays that came up during July and whatnot.
Bill, you supposedly studied witchcraft for 16 years, as you claim. You claim to have been a Satanist. You claim to have been all these things. And still, you don't understand that Lunasa, which was July 31st and August 1st, is a pagan holiday. It's not a satanic holiday. There were no satanic holidays in July.
And, you know, people have asked, you know, well, is this stuff even real?
It would really depend upon who you ask. There's a lot of people who think that magic is just a bunch of hokey nonsense and don't believe it. And that's fine. That's their belief. So they can believe whatever they want.
I mean, is magic real? Is white magic real, so-called? Is black magic real, you know, so-called? And again, black magic isn't a racial term. It's kind of about the...
Supposedly you studied witchcraft for 16 years, and then you're also into Satanism, and yet you don't understand the very concept of black and white magic. Interesting. Anyhow, let me explain it to you, Mr. BS. The concept of black and white magic is really a simplification. It's a way of morally placing baneful magic and beneficial magic into certain categories. And it is really a leftover from the Christian concept of good and evil, dark and light, etc., etc. Magic itself is a neutral force. It can be used for beneficial purposes, and it can be used for baneful purposes. You can use baneful magic for a beneficial purpose. You can use beneficial magic in a baneful manner. It really depends upon what the individual is using it for. But of course, you would know this if you actually did practice what you claim to have been for 16 years.
Ethics of the magic. And, you know, I want to just explain to people that from my background, okay, I spent 16 years as a witch.
No, you didn't. You spent 1 year in 1973.
And 9 years as a witch high priest.
Nope, 1 year, 1973, Boston. And then you went to Wisconsin and tried to become some kind of a witch high priest. And a bunch of people got annoyed with you. And you were just a tyrannical sexual predator, period. There's no other way to describe it. That's what you were. You were a tyrannical sexual predator.
And 5 or 6 years as a Satanist.
Nope, you were never a Satanist. There was one guy you met in 1973 who claimed to have been some kind of a Satanist, and so he taught you the deep, dark secrets of some kind of weird satanic thing that he believes that he was practicing. Of course, you were so drugged up back then, you probably would have believed anything. You also believed that that idiot up in the Ozarks was the High Druid of North America. Sometimes, Bill, I don't know if I should feel sorry for your delusional nonsense or if I should hate you for being the lying, deceiving shill that you are. Maybe 50-50.
And a couple of years as a satanic priest, you know, so, and of course, all those times I was also a medium.
A medium? Not a small or a large, just a medium, huh? Okay.
You know, I would go into trances and supposedly dead dudes would talk through me.
Yeah, if you drop enough acid, I bet you can go into all sorts of fun little trances and talk to all sorts of different people, huh?
You know, So people ask me, is this stuff even real, or is it just delusional? Are these people just crazy? And of course, some people have said that I'm crazy.
And that would be very, very accurate and insightful on their part.
Whatever. They're welcome to their opinion. But the fact of the matter is, I'm just crazy for Yah. I'm crazy for Yahushua. But I'm crazy. I'm just crazy for Yah. These people are just crazy. I'm crazy for you. But I'm crazy. I'm crazy for you. But I'm crazy. I'm just crazy for Yah. I'm crazy for Yahushua. I'm crazy for Yahushua. And I'm crazy. And I love them so much. But I also want to have you, as his children, and people who are watching this teaching, to understand that yes, magic is a real thing. The only difference is between what I'm saying and what the New Agers and the witches and the occultists and even,
the Shriners, the Girl Scouts of America, yeah, all those groups, just lump them all together.
Maybe even some Satanists are saying, is what is the source of the magic. Because most witches and psychics and New Agers believe this is just something that comes from within them.
Okay, Bill, you studied witchcraft for 16 years and you were a satanic high priest for 9 years. Why do I have to continually correct and update your information? Because you are such a people who practice magic, depending upon what style or what tradition of magic, are you going to believe it comes from various different sources. If you happen to have any knowledge whatsoever of ceremonial magic, you would understand that there are a lot of magicians who believe that their magic actually comes from God or the source or whatever they want to call it. There are others who are going to say that they come from pagan deities. There are some that are going to say that it comes from the individual. Others might even say it's a universal type of energy. There are all different sorts of concepts of what and where magic comes from. And yes, there are some magicians and there are some witches and there are some pagans who believe that magic comes from within oneself. Bill, why do I always have to explain this stuff to you? If you have actually studied this stuff for as long as you claim to have been, you would already know this.
Psychic power, all this blah, 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 And I used to teach this. I used to teach people how to do this stuff, how to do astrology, how to be a psychic, how to, foretell the future, all of these things, and how to work witchcraft, how to do spells.
No, you didn't. You are such a shill. You got into Freemasonry and witchcraft, and you claim to be all these other things simply so you could sit back and stroke your ego and say, oh, wow, am I not the most knowledgeable person in the entire world?
And yeah, it really does work to a degree. It doesn't work as well as being in the kingdom of heaven, and I can tell you that because I've been on both sides of that.
No, you've always been on one side. You were never, ever seriously on the other side, Bill.
But, so let's just look at what the scriptures say, because there are people out there, and I call them the modern-day Sadducees.
You're going to disparage witchcraft and New Age movement, all these other things. So what is going to be your primary source? Oh, the Bible, because that is your only source.
Who basically will tell you that there is no spiritual realm, really. There aren't really angels. There aren't really demons. There aren't real, and therefore all this stuff about magic and cursing doesn't really apply anymore.
Maybe they're just looking at the empirical evidence. Empirically, these things, there's no evidence for them. So why should they believe them? The people, including myself, who believe in magic, it comes down to their faith. That's what they believe. I understand that it is their faith. It is their opinion that these things exist. Empirically and objectively, I've never seen any evidence to support a conclusion that would convince another person that those things exist. It's all based on faith. There are people who accept this fact, and then there's some people who deny this fact, who try to make up something and justify it and somehow refer to something or somehow support it with some other subjective thing like the Bible.
Now, I don't know where they get that in terms of looking at the Bible, but that's what they teach and that's what they believe. And, I want people to understand that this stuff is real.
If you want people to understand that it's real, then you're going to have to prove it's real, Bill. You're going to have to empirically, objectively prove that it is real. Are you prepared to do that? Because I don't think that you are capable of it.
And I'm going to show you from the scriptures that it's real, from several places in both testaments.
So you're going to use a subjective book, which is not empirically true, to prove that something else is empirically and objectively true. You cannot prove a false with another false. It just doesn't work.
So, you know, and the reason why I want people to understand this is when you hear, okay, people are cursing, sending curses out in the direction of such and such a thing, or you yourself perhaps, you know, all you have to do, I mean, if you could see the literally dozens of emails we get every week from people who are being cursed by witches, by Satanists, by Freemasons, you know, whatever.
By Freemasons? Yeah, I don't think so. I love how you just kind of slipped this in there hoping that nobody would notice. And okay, if you get so many emails, why don't you share them with us? Why don't you give an example? Why don't you show it? I mean, it doesn't mean that they're actually being cursed. It's probably their own imagination. They just think they're under some kind of a curse because they've had a run of bad luck, which does happen to people, Bill. People have a run of good luck, and sometimes they have a run of bad luck. Doesn't mean some kind of a voodoo priest cast a curse on you. But of course, in your simple mind, you just probably think that, oh, I stubbed my toe, must have been a curse.
And understand one other thing here. I don't want to get too far off on a rabbit trail, but this is an important thing to bear in mind.
You, Bill, you don't want to go off on a rabbit trail? You mean the person who claims to have lived off of human blood for 18 months? The person who claims to have been in the Illuminati, a Luciferian, called up a demon in a friend's basement. But no, you don't want to go off on a rabbit trail? Yeah, Bill, what were we thinking?
There's what we call, and it's not a term we came up with, I think actually Derek Prince came up with it, the idea of soulish prayers. When someone is like a Catholic or a Mormon or some other unsaved...
You mean anyone who doesn't follow your particular brand of the quote-unquote pure form of Christianity. You mean all those other people? Yeah, I understand. Because your particular brand of faith is the one, the only, and the most true. Yeah, we know exactly how your egotistical mind works. You're still doing the same thing. You're still stroking yourself. You're just doing it with your new form of Christianity. But you're still doing the same thing you were doing when you were 20 years old, Bill. You're sitting there on your chair, stroking yourself. It's the same thing. But instead of supposedly being a Freemason or supposedly being a witch, you're now sitting in a chair stroking yourself, being a righteous Christian or whatever type of faith you adhere to now. And I wonder how long it's going to be before you move on to something else and disparage this. I wonder when you're going to do that. I don't know which is going to come first. You're going to come clean and tell everybody the truth, or you're going to move on to something else.
Cult type group, and they're praying for you. You know, they're praying for you to see the light. You know, whatever. That's a kind of curse. Even though those people aren't sitting there, you know, as it were, sticking pins into a doll and wishing you ill, you know, it is still, they are cursing you. Because if they're praying, for example, I would return to the Catholic Church, Yahweh forbid, but that's just an example, you know, or return to the Mormon Church, whatever it might be. If they're doing that, that's a kind of curse, even though the people are probably nice people, and they believe what they're doing is right. But this is religious or soulish prayers, and you need to pray against those too, because those do also have an effect. Because they think they're praying to the Almighty, but they're not. They're praying to the false Elohim of Catholicism, or the false El of Mormonism or whatever it might be.
I don't know if your viewers realize how so very lucky they are that they came across the one person on YouTube who happens to know all the true answers among all the various religions in the entire world. Just take a moment to be so grateful that you have come across this man. He is so knowledgeable and he holds the one true belief.
So with that in mind, let's look at what the scriptures say about the idea of curses and magic being real. Of course, the first example, and I think the most telling example,
I wonder what he's going to take out of context to prove his point. Should be interesting.
we find in the book of Exodus.
I'm just going to skip through this.
You know, mediums will do this a lot. They will like say something that sounds vague, and if the person says, "Oh yeah, that's my Uncle Fred," then they'll go with it.
No, that's what charlatans do. Charlatans claim things that are very vague so nobody can actually pin it down to any. You were not trained to be a medium or spiritualist. You were trained to be a charlatan. You were trained to take money from people. Never give them an exact answer, just give them an ambiguous answer. That is very telling to who you actually are, Bill.
You know, so it could be this whole thing was a fraud, but whatever it was, there was something that Saul could see. There was some kind of manifestation from the spirit world. Now, whether it was ectoplasm, you know, to use the modern spiritualistic term, whether it was an apparition, whether it was a demon that took human form as a familiar spirit, we don't know for sure. That's not the point of this.
Yeah, Bill, what is the point of this? You are using stories that are coming from the Bible, which are obviously allegorical and just plain mythology, to try and explain how mediums and spiritualists and demons and whatever works. It doesn't, you're not... I understand. You think you're making a great argument. You're like sitting there going, man, this argument is rock solid. But no, Bill. You are presenting Swiss cheese. There are so many holes in this that we could just say, well, how do you know it's true? What proof do you have? So, no, Bill. You think your argument is rock solid, but it is no. It's just Swiss cheese. There are so many holes in it.
The point is, this woman had real occult power.
I grow so tired of explaining things to you. The occult is not a power. It is not the source of power. Occult is the study. It is the study of the hidden or the obscure knowledge. That's what it is. People who study the occult will practice magic, or they will practice witchcraft or something other than that. But occult itself doesn't have the power. It is the study thereof. Again, why do I have to explain this to you if you are so knowledgeable in witchcraft, Satanism, and the occult and all of this? Why do I have to explain these very simple concepts to you? So I skipped this part, so let me bring you up to speed and just kind of summarize his points. Anybody who uses divination or uses magic is possessed by a demon. There you go. You're up to speed now.
And, you know, these demons can pretend to be good entities. They can pretend to be, you know, Samuel or dear old Uncle Harry or dear old Aunt Edith or whatever it might be, you know. Or they can even pretend like nowadays to be like ascended master.
You know, Bill, this argument would make a lot more sense to me if you could prove, first of all, that demons even exist. Again, the only source is your interpretation of the Bible. That's it. You don't have any other evidence to support your argument. So, yeah, no, sorry, Mr. BS, not buying it.
Or, you know, whatever, you know, some kind of awesome spiritual being. I used to do this myself when I was an ordained spiritualist medium. And, you know, I had these high-level beings. I even had Jesus come through me and talk through me, except it wasn't.
Yeah, but I bet you at the time you claimed it was Jesus. Bill, you have not changed. The tune is the same. It's the instrument in which you use to create the tune that has changed. That's all.
It was a demon pretending to be, that's what a familiar spirit is. A familiar spirit is an entity that comes through and pretends to be something you're familiar with.
No, Bill. The name familiar spirit is not because the spirit took on the form of people who were familiar to you. No, the term familiar comes from Latin, and it means familiaris. From BibleStudyTools. Familiar spirits, sorcerers or necromancers who professed to call up the dead to answer questions, were said to have a familiar spirit. Such a person was called by the Hebrews an ab, which probably means a leathern bottle, for sorcerers were regarded as vessels containing the inspiring demon. This Hebrew word was equivalent to the pytho of the Greeks and was used to denote both the person and the spirit which possessed him. The word familiar is from the Latin familiaris, meaning a household servant, and was intended to express the idea that sorcerers and spirits as their servants, ready to obey their command. In European folklore and folk belief of the medieval and early modern periods, familiar spirits were believed to be the supernatural entities that would assist witches and cunning folk in the practice of magic. So no, Bill, it wasn't that the spirit took on an appearance that was familiar to the person. That is not the root of the word.
Like, most people would recognize, Jesus, obviously.
What? How? Who? Where? What? Bill, even if Jesus is even proven to exist as a historical figure, how would anyone know what he actually looks like? Any image that we have of Jesus is based off of the imagination of the artist who is creating it. And the idea that a historical figure known as Jesus would be a Caucasian with long, straight brown hair and a trimmed beard is incredibly slim.
Jesus, man.
So that's what this woman was doing. And when Paul cast the devil out, she lost that ability, but she got saved. And of course, this displeased her masters no end. So the point I want to make here is, number one, the occult is real. But number two, as this last passage especially makes very clear, the origin of this power is demonic. If there is real, genuine occult power, it's demonic in origin. And it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, most of these people don't get that. I mean, most New Agers don't even believe in demons. Most witches don't believe in demons. Most spiritualists don't believe in demons. But that doesn't matter. I tell people this. I mean, if you don't believe in gravity and you walk off a cliff, you're still going to get hurt.
Gravity exists. Demons do not exist.
And in the same way, even if you say, oh, there is no devil, there are no demons, I'm using this by spiritual power or power from within myself, that's a bunch of hooey. Because the Bible clearly shows us that, number one, you're not to commune with the dead, and number two, that the powers behind these supernatural manifestations are demonic in nature.
Well, your book of mythology could be wrong.
So when people say, oh, I'm being cursed by maybe they have neighbors that are Satanists or something, a lot of churches, a lot of pastors and leaders will just laugh at them. They'll say, oh, you're just nuts. You're imagining things.
Yeah, the smart ones will.
And that's too bad, because the church is supposed to be at the forefront. I mean, Yahushua told us the gates of hell would not prevail against us, the body of Moshiach. And frankly, nowadays, it's like the gates of hell are running over us.
The hell are you talking about, Bill? In what way? Describe it. Explain exactly how this is happening. You're just making this shit up. There's no gates of hell that are being opened and then suddenly all these demons are out running amok. Such an idiot.
So the bottom line is, this stuff is real, and the church needs to wake up and smell the brimstone. It really does. This is not a time to be Sadducees and to deny the power of the supernatural world. This is a time to take these things seriously and to pray against them and to pray for these people to be saved. Because most of them are, I mean, obviously the Satanists are pretty nasty people, but most of these witches and spiritualists and New Agers and so on are decent people. Most of them are lost, but they're decent people. They're altruistic people.
No, they're decent people. And you could stop it right there.
But they're deceived. They're deceived down to their toenails. And they need salvation. And if we just ignore them and pretend they aren't even there, kind of like people who whistle in the dark, you know, how are they going to find the truth? Who's going to share the light of Mashiach with them? So, because let me just end with this thought. I was a witch in Milwaukee for 10 years.
No, you weren't. You were a witch for 1 year.
Not one believer witnessed to me.
Actually, even from your own story, there's at least 2. At least twice. Bullshits. You talked about the chick tract. You've also talked about the lady in the bank who wrote Jesus would save you. So, no, Bill, you're full of shit yet again.
Not one. In 10 years of being out, you know, working in secular jobs, you know, working in various, you know, and whatever, nobody came to our door. Not even Jehovah's Witnesses. They were afraid to come to our door. But, you know, Christians shouldn't be afraid of that kind of thing.
So Bill just rambles on about how people should go out and save souls. So I'm not going to play that. If you want to watch the rest of the video, go for it. If anybody who is a Christian who happens to be watching this video who thinks this is a good idea, let me just tell you right now how fucking annoying it is. It is super, super annoying. So please just stop doing it. Please, please just stop doing it. Thank you so much. Blessed be. Hello, my friends. As you may know, I respond, criticize, and correct a lot of misinformation and other nonsense that is directed at the witch, pagan, and occult community. Often, my videos are attacked, demonetized, or deemed not advertiser-friendly. Nearly all financial support comes from donations. If you would like to support my channel, please check out my Patreon page, as I have recently updated it. You can also make a one-time donation through PayPal. The link is below. You can also help support my channel by liking this video and sharing it on your social media. Thank you, and blessed be.